And it's CCSO
wireless.
all small?
Yep. Everybody good?
Hey, we should be good to send it out now.
All right, I'll be back in 1 minute.
Okay. Don't worry, I fight. Yeah, that'd be nice.
They didn't answer.
Thank you, sir. You still come up as James Nichols on my phone. I like I deleted JR and it's still.
Oh
still
my
on.
God, really?
Yeah. Man, yeah, please delete that.
No, no, JR. I knew the calls I was getting from that. Hey, can you be that tight?
No way.
I got this. Cause he was nice,
How's your dinosaur story come out, Brett?
What?
How's your dinosaur story come out?
CCSO?
Fine, although I heard from Rocky Twyman today, who said,
Oh, I know.
who said, Rocky said, that was a really nice story, you do a great job, but you need to do a correction because
They
the Earth
didn't
didn't
really
exist
die.
115 million years ago.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you're doing.
He said the earth didn't exist.
The Earth came into creation.
That's what the Seventh Day Adventists believe, I think.
Oh,
Yeah. So I just said, Rocky, it's great to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
that's all you can do.
But you know what the fun thing about I went home and I told everybody about the story. So after I finished my stand-up, the kid that was poking around the pile behind me walked
Yes,
over and
thank you
he
very
said,
much.
hold out your hand.
Daryl.
And he dropped something in it. I said, what's that? He said, it's a crocodile. So from 115 million years ago. And he
Hey,
said,
Mr. Dale,
just
can
lying
you bring
all
up
over
full
the
time?
place.
We have a press conference.
Him or that guy Max or whatever,
The undergrad.
Can you bring up full talk?
One of the paleontologists
Mr.
referred
Dale,
to
we need to do
as
a
the undergrads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
press conference
That sounds
in
nice.
Charles County.
I didn't get to keep it, but I mean, it just, there's
Right, the one of them showed me
so
like,
much.
yeah, one of them showed me something.
Cold
that
case.
was a nice little element it might be.
Charles County.
All the rocks
Yeah,
and
Charles
fossils.
County
Well,
Cold
you know,
Case.
kind of hindsight, I thought, I should have said to him, come on, you guys put this on. You just
Let's go for now.
a dinosaur part, you guys must be coincidence. You know, that would have been good.
The big question is, and I know the answer, is, why didn't you dig here before? Why was there no digging? And I know the answer is because they want to go to Wyoming.
Give you a mic check while we up here.
That's why.
Did I see somebody?
Hey, Fred, can you bring up lights?
They doing it.
Can you talk to him, Dale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Got a mic check?
You are. Who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with Brad Bell.
Okay, stand by.
CCSO all
Go ahead and give me my check.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, talking to you live down here at Charles County Sheriff Department, here for a cold case. Where we are.
It can come a little bit. I know it can come a little bit, but
I'm sorry?
I say you can bring it up just a little bit.
Okay. You know what? It's maxed out. Let me do this. Let me change things real quick.
You good, Derek?
Everybody like how Dale goes about his job in such a quiet, unobtrusive way.
Wouldn't expect anything.
I know, with that very quiet shirt on, too.
Right?
That we can't
Very,
see.
very subdued.
See a fingernail or something.
Bruce, did I hear you say you were retiring?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
When-
Retiring or fired? I mean, really.
A week from tomorrow.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
so they did give you 2 weeks notice.
Question, man.
How long, how many years do you have?
28 years at Gen 9.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you're like close behind me, right? And Brad's ahead of me.
Rookie.
What do you got?
32 at 7.
I've got 39.
Dale got all of you.
I got 40, but you're older than me.
How many years have you been in business?
20, just 21.
Dale got all of you.
Newbie.
Ain't that right, D?
What do you got?
Two in the
Bill?
business,
42.
The business, but,
24 here,
okay.
What do you got?
36.
36.
Okay, mic check. I feel okay.
Bob, you're quiet over there.
Yeah, I know.
How many years you got in, Bob?
Bob? I'm drunk. I have no idea.
Mic check. Is that better for you? Mic check. I got you a hard line. Mic check. Is that better?
That's fine, that's great.
All right. Thank you.
Great, yeah.
Man, it's all Thanks, bye.
And I'm the baby, I'm 2 with paper down here, so the Maryland is. I don't know, I don't think I was born then.
I feel like a cold case.
Yeah.
What did I say you got work in the Wi-Fi was?
CCSO wireless, all lowercase. Well, I could have shared it with you.
I'm in. Excited.
They decided they got the wrong guy. Good for you, buddy. Yeah. I mean, I probably would have done it another couple of years, but my wife really says, she just gets tired. She's younger than me. She's like, but
I was gonna say, that's nice.
I think 39 years.
She wants them all?
Yeah, three dead ones for 39 years, and the last few mostly by myself. It's gonna kill you.
That's why you should quit. If you're doing it by yourself.
Well, you know, it didn't help.
That's a polite way of saying this industry is changing. You old school. If they can pimp you out, they will. Just like any business.
They wanted to sign me with your contract.
It's called the pimp game.
What?
Here we go.
Mark, Judy, family. Here we go.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
Thank you all for doing it.
So the officers can come in. Here we go. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Today, it is with a deep sense of compassion for the Belk family and sincere appreciation of our Charles County Sheriff's Office investigative commitment that I can announce that we have arrested and charged Andre Taylor, 62, of Washington, D.C., in connection with the homicide of Vicki Lynn Belk. Miss Belk, who was found murdered 44 years ago in a wooded area on Metropolitan Church Road and Bryan's Road, Maryland. And at the time of Vicki's death, she was 28 years old. She was a daughter, a sister, and a mother. Vicki was the victim of a terrible crime. And at the time of this incident, the suspect was unknown to law enforcement. For years, detectives, forensic personnel followed up potential leads, kept up with DNA advancements, and worked feverishly with crime labs and stayed on top of new technologies. The Charles County Sheriff's Office maintained a bridge of communication with the Belk family to remain committed, persistent, and dedicated, while the Belk family remained steadfast and faithful. The Charles County Sheriff's Office and the Belk family were unwavering to their pursuit of justice. A few years ago, the Charles County Sheriff's Office received investigative leads in this case, which ultimately directed our detectives, forensic investigators to Andre Taylor. This was a collective effort from members of local, state, and federal law enforcement partners and forensic science labs in the closure of this investigation. Early this month, Vicki's family was notified of the break in the investigation, and they are here with us today to remind us of this. Vicki was loved and cherished. In a few minutes, we will hear from Vicki's family, but first, I would like to call upon Detective Sergeant John Elliott, our Criminal Investigative Division, and Deputy Director Noel Gurman of our Forensic Science Unit to provide a timeline of how this case unfolded. Detective Elliott?
Thank you. Good morning. I'll give you a brief summary of the investigation. Beginning on Tuesday, August 28, 1979, Vicki Lynn Belk was reported missing to the Prince George's County, Maryland Police Department by her then boyfriend. The two had last seen each other the day before at the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C., where they both worked. Vicki never returned to her apartment in Suitland, Maryland. On Wednesday, August 29, 1979, a local teenager was riding his bike in the area of Metropolitan Church Road and Livingston Road when he noticed a body on the ground in a wooded area about 20 feet off the roadway. The Sheriff's Office was contacted, and officers from the Charles County Sheriff's Office responded and determined the case appeared to be a murder. On August 30th, same year, detectives positively identified the woman as Vicki Lynn Belk. The Office of Chief Medical Examiner of Baltimore ruled the cause of death as a gunshot wound. Now I introduce you to our Deputy Director of Forensic Science, Noel Gurman.
Good morning. During the initial investigation, detectives were proactive in recovering, processing, and maintaining evidence. Throughout the years, investigators worked with allied agencies and forensic labs pursuing leads. However, the case eventually went cold. As forensic technology advanced, the evidence in Vicki's case continued to be re-examined, a measure of commitment between our forensic personnel and detectives who continuously review cold cases to assess if evidence can be reevaluated using new technology. In early 2022, our forensic science section again reevaluated evidence in Vicki's case. Her clothing was submitted for testing using newer technology, and a profile was developed and entered into the Combined DNA Index System, or CODIS, which is a national DNA database. On November 1st, 2022, I was notified of a DNA match between the profiles developed from the evidence obtained in Vicki's case to a convicted offender, Andre Taylor, age 62, of Washington, D.C.
Upon receiving the notification of the match, we began investigating Taylor's background and his ties to Browns Road, Maryland. We learned Taylor's DNA was in the national database because he was arrested for several violent crimes which occurred in Washington, D.C. Further, Taylor's address on his arrest records from the 1980s showed he lived at a residence in Browns Road, Maryland, an address that was less than 4 miles from where Vicky was found. In other arrest records, he listed an address in Washington, D.C., which was not far from where we believe Vicky was abducted from. We work with our law enforcement partners at the United States of Homeland Security Investigations, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Section, and the U.S. Secret Service Baltimore Field Office, who assisted us throughout the investigation and helped obtain a search warrant for Mr. Taylor's DNA. Based on the collaborative efforts and after months of trying to find him, Taylor was eventually located in Washington, D.C., and a search warrant for his DNA was obtained and served. The DNA was later confirmed to be a match between Taylor and the evidence from 1979. On June 16th, Charles County State's Attorney's Office presented the facts of the case to a Charles County grand jury, which indicted Taylor on charges of first-degree murder, first-degree rape, and second-degree rape. On June 22nd, after Taylor was indicted, our warrant fugitive unit, along with the United States Marshals Service Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force and members of the Metropolitan Police Department, arrested Taylor. He was taken to a detention facility in Washington, D.C. On June 27th, Taylor waived his extradition and was transported to the Charles County Detention Center where he was charged. Taylor is currently being held without bond. In 1979, Vicky Belk was 28 years old. Andre Taylor was 18 years old. A review of the original report and investigative efforts since 1979 showed there was no information to indicate Andre Taylor and Vicky Belk were known to each other. Further, the crimes in which Taylor was arrested for in Washington, D.C. in the 1980s are not similar to the Belk murder. At this time, Taylor has not been linked to any other cases.
Now we would like to give this opportunity to Vicky's family members to share remarks. First, I will call on Vicky's son, Lamont Belk, and after Lamont, Vicky's sister, Judy Belk, will share some remarks.
Thank you, Sheriff Barry. Good morning, everyone. I have the honor and privilege of speaking on behalf of our family and really coming forward with much and tremendous gratitude to Sheriff Barry and to the Honorable Tony Covington, the state's attorney for this county, for leading the investigation and now prosecution of this case. And thank God for touching their hearts and minds and all of those at whom they supervise for making this day possible. I also am tasked with introducing our family and their respective commitments and connections to this case and to the investigation. So immediately to my right is my mother's oldest sister, Judy Belk, currently the CEO of the California Wellness Foundation. She's traveled a great length to be here. To her right is my mother's brother, Lonnie Belk Jr., also known as Ricky, who's a retired lieutenant with the Fairfax County, Virginia Fire Department. Immediately to my right is my mother's sister, April Belk, who presently lives in the area and works for Virginia Tech. To her right is my mother's sister, Kay Belk, who's a retired homicide detective and presently serves as an investigator for the Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office. And to her right are my sons, first Joseph Belk, and being held by my wife, Brooklyn Sawyers Belk, is my other son, Joshua Belk. They are the daughter-in-law and grandsons that my mother never knew. Further to my right is my mother's nephew and Kay's Belk's son, Donnell Daly Jr., also known as DJ, who's currently a police officer in Texas. And to his right is my Aunt Judy's lovely daughter, Casey Peaks, And to her right is her brother and my Aunt Judy's other son, Ryan Peaks. And there's so many other family and friends who could not be here for this moment. Again, I just thank God for allowing us to be alive and well to bear witness to this momentous occasion. In 1979, I was 7 years old. If I'm blessed to live to see another birthday, I'll be 52 come September. It's a long time. In 1979, as a matter of perspective, Jimmy Carter was president in August of '79. There was no Starbucks, and Apple was just a fruit. We didn't even have cell phones, believe it or not. I know that comes to the amazement of DJ and Casey and Ryan. There's a little bit of a generational difference. So, again, I started by thanking the fine leaders of this effort in this community, Sheriff Berry, the Honorable Tony Covington. Our community is a little bit safer today with this person behind bars. But special thanks are in order as well. Detective Sergeant John Elliott seized this cold case in 2007. I can't imagine what he was looking at that time, and I'm sure he did not know it would culminate in this moment. But we thank you, Detective Sergeant Elliott.
Sir.
Thank you to the head of the forensic unit, whom you just met, Ms. Noelle Gurman, and her fine staff, who employed modern techniques to well-preserved evidence to render this occasion. It would not have been possible without her unit's efforts. Thank you to John Stackhouse and his team who are prosecuting this case, and for their reviewing the evidence and assessing it properly to present it before a grand jury. And thank you to the grand jury of Charles County that saw fit to return an indictment in this case. Thank you to Lieutenant Frank Tona, who assisted Detective Sergeant Elliott, Captain John Burrows, Diane Richardson, and Debbie Harden, and all the fine staff and personnel of the Sheriff's Department and the State's Attorney's Office who have saw this case through and who have supported my family and I. Thank you to all of those who worked in the property room, the evidence room, the record room, who preserved this evidence. A lot of things can happen in 44 years. Without any evidence, we're not here today. But they're nameless and faceless at this moment, but they have as much to contribute as anyone here, because the evidence was there for this match to be made. And I thank you very much. My family, thank you very much. It could have so easily been misplaced or mislabeled, but none was such the case. You didn't know my mother like we did. She was of no particular notoriety or fame, but you just did your jobs. Thank you. Thank you for the court and to the court for holding this person in custody based on the law and evidence. And finally, I'll leave you with this, the gratitude, the deep sense of gratitude, which really there are no adequate words in the English language to express. So we just simply say thank you repeatedly. But the gratitude is not conditioned upon or subject to or connected to any particular outcome in this case. We know that this is the beginning of a long and arduous process, and that's okay. Come what may, we are grateful. Thank you.
Ms. Judy?
Thank you. Again, my name is Judy Belk, and Vicki was my big sister. Want to start with gratitude, talk a little bit more about our family, about the community, and end with a brief call to action. Gratitude, and Lamont said it all, for the excellence in terms of the work that got us to this point. Folks did their job. and did it well. And I know that just doesn't happen, so we really thank you for caring and for providing us a little bit of closure. Family, the last time that I saw Vicki was at my wedding day. She was my maid of honor. We were in our family church, Oakland Baptist Church. She'd helped me pull together the wedding. There are a couple of folks that I just want to mention that aren't here, but I know they're here in spirit. First of all, we're one of six. I'm one of six. We also have our youngest sister, Granada, who couldn't be with us. And then we always give honor to our elders. And the matriarch of our family is Joyce Casey Sanchez, who I knew, if she wasn't ill, she would be here. And we hope that she'll make it to her 90th birthday next month. And then, of course, our parents, Lonnie and Maydell Belk. I need to say their names. I was not a parent in 1979. And now that I am, I can't imagine the process of bearing your child. So we want to give honor to them. The loss of Vicki was just not to our family. It was a community. We are fifth, maybe sixth generation Virginians, Alexandria, Virginia. Vicki and all of us were raised in a very close-knit African-American historical community in Alexandria called Seminary. The center of that community was Oakland Baptist Church, which was founded in the 1800s by our great-great-grandfather, John Wesley Casey. So when we lost Vicki, the community also suffered. It was the church where Vicki and I were baptized, where she, at the time of her death, was the assistant clerk. And the community was traumatized, so much so that after she died, in the African-American community, folks either feed you or they give you money or resources. So almost immediately, the community the church started receiving $5, $10, and once we got through the immediate grief, there was a small fund of money just coming in from donations. That was the beginning of the Vicki Belk Scholarship Foundation, which today has provided scholarships to over 100 young people and will continue. Because as horrific as Vicki's death was, we've chosen to focus on how she lived. Finally, I want to end by talking about a call to action. We stand here as proxy to many American families who have lost loved ones to violence, to gun violence. Over 42,000 Americans die each year, disproportionately communities of color. We need more violence intervention strategies, trauma-informed care, and the national will for sensible gun laws to ensure that guns do not get in the hands of individuals like the man who is accused of murdering Vicki. This was also violence against women, and that continues to be an issue that we also need to deal with. And many of these cases go unreported and unsolved, but not today, not in Charles County. So what can we do? We can continue to vote for individuals like Sheriff Berry and State Attorney Tony Covington, because we know it matters who leads our organizations at both the county, state, and federal levels. We need to vote for the right people, and we need to hold them accountable. It matters who serves as sheriff, state attorney, governor, in Congress, and in the White House. And what else can we do? Because we can think, given today's headlines, that violence, I mean, what can we do about it? We can all in our own lives, whether it's in our church communities, advocacy groups, be an advocate and stand up and support community-based organizations who are working hard. And there are many, and I've had the opportunity to work with supporting many of them in my role at the California Wellness Foundation and others across the country who are trying hard to ensure that our community stays safe. We do not want another family to go through what we've gone through. Thank you.
You can see that the Belk family is well represented here, and we thank them for sharing and also thank for their heartfelt remarks. I would like to acknowledge and thank the following law enforcement forensic partners for their dedication to this case. Their efforts, individually and collectively, contributed to the identification and arrest of the suspect. The United States Department of Homeland Security, Special Agent David Roberson is with us. The Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., the United States Secret Service, the United States Marshal Service, Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force, the Maryland State Police Forensic Science Division, Sorensen Forensics, Bodie Technology, Charles County Crime Solvers Betty Turner, who is with us, the state's attorney here in Charles County, Tony Covington, and his fine investigative group, and our media partners who profiled this case over the years. Further, I would like to thank our dedicated forensic personnel and our criminal investigative division detectives who consistently review cases. For more than 10 years, the Charles County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Initiative has worked diligently on the agency's cold cases. Through the support of federal grant funds, this initiative has allowed us to make significant progress in unsolved cases. We look forward to continuing our relationship with our federal partners. In closing, we are relentless in the pursuit of justice. We never stop, we never give up, and we will always search for ways to solve crimes. Today is a clear illustration of that. It is our duty and our mission to pursue justice for the victims of crime. And again, to our media partners, thank you for being here, and we now will take questions and answers.
Can I ask Mr. Belk a question?
Absolutely.
I understand that you are either a current or a former federal prosecutor, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about that and whether the lingering mystery of your mom's death had anything to do with your choice of profession?
Yes, as I look back, I believe it did. I don't think in a moment I was conscious of it. But as I look back, being a prosecutor, both in the state and federal systems, I'm able to attribute that to her loss and the experience associated with that.
Are you currently an assistant?
No, I have since resigned. I'm now currently in-house counsel at the Tennessee Valley Authority.
You were an assistant U.S. attorney in Georgia?
I was, yes, sir.
Which district is that?
The Southern District of Georgia, which, quite frankly, is a little bit gerrymandered. It's more eastern, or western Georgia, I should say. Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Belk, is there, I mean, you were 7 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there a memory of your mother that's given you strength all these years?
Yes, in fact, I'll just share quickly. I think one of the lasting memories was my being baptized, and she and I going to our pastor and being counseled as to making sure I understood the significance of that. And I think I answered all the questions correctly. But I appreciate it more as I've gotten older, what she did. Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what kind of mom she was, what you remember about her?
I remember being disciplined, quite frankly. And I don't know if that's just some compartmentalization on my part or what, but I would think so. I remember being disciplined, but I also remember she was always working. In fact, when we last saw her, she was going to work that day, and we didn't see her again. But she worked at the Department of Agriculture, and she worked at the church, our local church, and she would often take me with her as she was doing the church work especially. So,
how much do you think that the grandkids have missed by not having her?
Yeah, I couldn't even begin to describe. My wife and I often say we've lost our parents on both sides, and we feel the loss of our parents, and certainly they would feel the loss of their grandparents.
Can I ask Judy a question? Judy, did you and your sister have some part in the civil rights matter in Alexandria's children?
You know, when Vicki and I started school, I don't, you know, maybe I hope I don't look as old as I am. But Virginia, and at least Northern Virginia, was very different than it was when we started school. It was about, 6 or 8 years, 9 years after the Brown decision. But Virginia has always been quite stubborn about those issues, and had still not integrated the schools in Alexandria. And so when we started school, we were bused about 3 or 4 miles past a perfectly fine all-white school, Minnie Howard, to a separate but I would say very unequal all-black school, Louse Crouch, in Alexandria. And the bus would traditionally be late, we'd be out in the rain, and my mother, who, was really just 22 at the time, I just remember one day overhearing her talk to someone say, okay, the Belk girls are in. They were at I think the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and others who I know were in the Jewish community were looking for a test case to test the Brown decision. And my mother raised her hand, and you would say, well, that was easy. But there were a lot of threats for those who raised their hand. And my mother raised the hand, and as a result of that, a lawsuit was filed against the public schools in Alexandria, and Vicki was the lead plaintiff. They couldn't use race anymore, so the Thomas C. Chamberlain, who T.C. Williams High School was named after, since his name has since been stripped off that, decided that what they would use would be mental deficiency. So the court case said that this group of black, of which we were a party, should not be allowed because we were mentally deficient. We didn't have an IQ. Our attorneys chose to test that by testing the IQ of the white students. It appeared that we weren't so mentally deficient. And so we were allowed to go to Minnie Howard, but it would be years before Alexandria public schools were fully integrated. If you know the movie Remember the Titans, it wasn't really until we were in high school that under threat of federal intervention that Alexandria chose to. So it was a scary time for us, in doing it, and a lot of credit goes to my mother, who was you know, at 22, courageous enough to say she's going to make it happen.
Let me ask you a couple quick questions. Your family's extraordinary, impressive, and successful. Law enforcement, health, wellness, charitable work. How has this tragedy and mystery hovered over the family? Has it hovered over the family?
Yeah.
And then the second part, and I'd love to ask Lamont, both of you as well. How now does this help?
Well, first of all, let me just correct you. We are not a perfect family. We're not. We have our dysfunctions like everyone else, and that is the message that I want to give away. We are very proud. I'm very proud family, but we have had our issues, and there have been issues. We've seen all sides of the law enforcement effort, so we're not perfect at all, and I don't want to give that. We are, first of all, we're a large family. I mean, as you know, my son who now lives in, you know, Alexandria, I said, say hi to everybody, every black person you see on the street, because it's probably a relative. So I would say that for me, I will tell you how it's impacted me. I view Vicky's death as a marker, before, after. And you have to realize, I'd been married less than a month. I hadn't even opened up my wedding presents, and I got the call. And so, every year, I mean, my wedding anniversary is about to come up, you know, August 11th, 44 years. There's always a cloud over that. The other issue for me is I didn't even know, I didn't have a name to it. I know now it's post-traumatic stress. People who are in my orbit know that I need to know if they arrive safely, because Vicky went to work one day and just didn't come home. And that happens all the time in gun violence, especially. You don't get to say goodbye. And then finally, on the positive side, it has made me more determined to be an advocate and a spokesperson around violence prevention. And others might want to say.
And then the second half of that, for both of you, is then as well, how does this help this moment now?
Well, I was just speaking for myself. I mean, I think it's very comforting to know that that someone is going to potentially be held responsible for this, and that it wasn't someone that she knew or that we knew. That's another piece to this. And so, you know, the grief will always be there, but I think the healing is just a little bit more progressed now.
And has this been a cloud over your, I mean, gosh, you lost your mom at age 7.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I mean, it was I only had her, like I said, I'll be 52 in a few months. So really a fraction of my life was with her. But I mean, she created a great foundation for me in those few formative years. But I agree more with my aunts and my uncles. My uncle, who, you know, this was their sibling. They grew up with her. They have so many more memories to have shared with her, and so it's just a different perspective, but a loss nonetheless.
Sheriff Bell, could I ask you a question? If I'm recalling what I read before I came here, you were a first grader in 1960 when you were allowed to go to Meeting Howard finally. And your older sister, entered that school the same year as you did, 1960. What grade was she in at that point?
She was going into third.
Third grade. So she's 3 years older than you?
No.
How old are you?
Okay. All right. Listen, it's a big age and it's unlisted, but no. I know. You know, I'm 70 years old.
And so you were first grader in 1960. She was third grade.
Yeah.
72, did you say?
No, really, come on, 70. 70. And only for Vicky would I tell my age. Now this is going to be blasted all over the media, right?
Can you talk to us a little bit about your fondest memory of Vicky, or just talk talk to us about what kind of
You know, as I said, we were family of 6, and so we were kind of raised in twos. So Vicky was my twosie. I mean, we were 18 months apart, and so we, you know, like my nephews, we were dressed alike when we were young. You know, she was a big sister. She gave me cover. You know, she didn't go as far away to college, and then gave me the little space to go further away to college. She was the first in our family to go to college, so she inspired me. And she covered for me from the very beginning. You know, I would, you know, be somewhere reading a book, and she would cover for me in doing the chores. And the big memory that I have is the day that we walked into Minnie Howard together. There was a concern that there might be violence, and I remember the community group saying, just be prepared, just walk straight. Judy, just hold on to Vicky's hand. And I remember, you know, which tells a little bit more about my mom, and they said people might spit on you, they might call you the N-word. And then I remember my mother said, hold it, anybody spit on my girls, I'm gonna kick their ass. But none of that happened. None of that happened, but it was, I think we went to that school with 2 others from the neighborhood, the Bradbys, so it's 4 of us. It was very, you know.
Did she hold your hand?
She held my hand, and checked in on me as she always did. So, you know, she was, you know, all I can say was my big sister, my partner. We grew up together. You have to realize, you know, when we, because we were in an underserved African American community, 10 miles from the White House, the first 10 years of our lives, we did not have access to running water, plumbing. So she would take my hand and go to the outhouse with me. We would have to go and get pails of water to have water, and it had nothing to do with not being able to have access. So those services were available. They just stopped short of the African American community that we're in.
What college did you graduate from?
St. Augustine College in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Sheriff, can we ask you a technical question? I mean, we hear about voting technology and the incredible stuff they do with familial genealogy and DNA and all that incredible technology. This was actually sounds like it was simpler than that. Did you simply put the DNA into CODIS and come up with a result? Can you tell us what the breakthrough was?
What I will do, I'll defer to Director Noel in reference to her particular technology. That's her subject of expertise.
Sure, so you are correct. It was simpler than that. We did not use genetic genealogy in this case. So it was just a regular profile that was entered into CODIS.
A DNA profile.
A DNA profile, yes.
Does Mr. Taylor have 2 other murders in the District of Columbia?
Looking at his history and working on his background, he's been charged with 2 unrelated murders. One, I believe, was 1980. The other was 1989. I don't know all the circumstances or facts of that, and I say MPD, Metropolitan Police Department, would have more information regarding those, but there are charges.
You served time for one of them.
I'm sorry?
You served time for one of them?
I believe so.
Is he currently locked up?
He is.
I mean, on old or a new charge?
The new charge for the indictment related to Vicky Bell.
He was already out on the old charge.
That's correct.
How long had he been out, do you know?
That I can't. Several years. Yes, sir.
Has he shared any thoughts, communications with your investigators, what this was all about, why, anything like that?
A little bit. The day we arrested him with the Marshals Task Force, transported him to Washington or MPD's homicide branch, and I was able to speak to him for about 2 hours. We had a good dialogue, very respectful conversation with the 2 of us, but for preservation of the prosecution phase at this point, I don't want to reveal exactly what he said at this point, but it was constructive dialogue, I'll say.
Did he confess?
He provided information. I'll just say it was useful.
Sergeant, in the warrant for the affidavit, the affidavit for the search warrant for DNA describes the sequence of events that led to her abduction that day. And the vehicle that she was returning to, which belonged to her boyfriend, disappeared along with her and was later recovered in the district. Do you remember, or can you tell me what kind of vehicle that was and what year it was?
I believe the year of the vehicle was 1972. I believe it was a Buick. I could be wrong, but it was a 1972 Buick. I don't remember exactly the make.
And the other thing is, I assume that there's no gun recovered yet, nowhere at all in this case.
No, sir.
And the family said, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. This is just a technical thing. You guys said she was on her way to work. Was she on her way to work at the Department of Agriculture, or because I had read that she was on her she was doing errands. She was on her way to work. I mean, you can answer at the church or at the Department of Agriculture.
I'm sorry.
The Department of Agriculture.
Okay. From investigative reports, what I've been able to learn through our investigation is she went to work that day at the Department of Agriculture with her boyfriend. The two used his car. They parked at the RFK Metro lot. They would get on a train, the Metro, from there, go downtown. She got the keys from her boyfriend that day at work, got on a train, and went, we presume at that point, to her car, and that's where we believe she was abducted, and this is where it started.
At RFK.
Correct.
After she got off work.
No.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Lunchtime. It was lunchtime.
Oh, lunchtime, okay. So she went back to the car at lunchtime?
Yeah, to run it.
You believe that she was abducted there?
Correct.
And but you believe the actual murder happened here in Charles?
Correct.
Sure. That's a family question. Her boyfriend at the time, the man she lived with, Mr. Hill, I think his name was. Is he, if I may have the name wrong, it's in my notes, but is he part of the family still, or is he?
He's deceased.
He's deceased. Is he your father, sir?
No.
No.
And is there a possibility then that he could be charged in D.C. with kidnapping as well? If the abduction took place there, or?
We're exploring all our possibilities. Certainly, we've done a lot of work on it, but some more information may be learned over the years. I'm sorry, in subsequent time since the arrest. But that's ongoing. I really can't fully answer that question just yet.
Ms. Gurman, I have a question for you. As you said earlier, this was a lot simpler of a case with the DNA to put it in CODIS and finding a link to Mr. Taylor. With the advances going on with DNA identification now, do you think this will make it easier to find and solve other cold cases?
Certainly, yes, I do. Yeah.
Is there anything, April, or you want to share while you're here? We're all ears.
Well,
Could you step up?
yeah.
You're the
Only boy, yes. Number 3 in the chain of 6. But I'm probably, I'm just, kind of sorry that my parents aren't here. That's probably the biggest thing, because, when something like that goes down in your family, that tragic, you remember time and place. And I just remember them coming back after driving down here to identify her. The neighborhood was like on, everybody kind of knew what was up, but we had somebody in the neighborhood drive them all the way down, this was considered way out the way from Alexandria. And I just remember, because my mom was a very strong woman, and that day, when she came back, I'd never seen it like that, when she had to come down here to identify my sister. So I always remember that, how she yelled when she got out the car and said that the guy, whoever did this or who did this, or we didn't know at that time, and like threw her, left her on the side of the road like she was some type of animal, And I still remember her saying that to me, and I've never seen her, being that, I just never seen her cry like that. So, and I'm just glad this is finally getting ready to come to a closure. So, thanks everybody. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Did you ever mention about motive? Can you say anything about a motive?
Based on what we have right now, I think the motive, it was a kidnapping. We believe there's evidence of sexual assault and homicide.
Completely random?
Absolutely random occurrence, random act. I think it was a chance encounter between the two that day.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
A little bit of information, you probably got more time to be honest with you.
I would think you guys warrant that your affidavit in DC for that search.
Right.
Squad.
I think that was an 89 case. He got
Thank you guys for coming down.
He got charged with prison.
Yeah, yeah. You walked away from it.
That's what I was thinking. In Maryland, we call it something different.